All right. Good afternoon. We're still in early afternoon, by the way. So in my last video, just before closing it up, I said that, and I have made a lot of videos so far, and I said that because I've made so many videos and because I have so much content, that it's not very easy to come up with more content sometimes. Anyways, because of that, I had an idea, and I thought, why not? And I haven't pre-planned anything. I haven't even, but I thought, why not talk about books? Why not have one video with a boring topic? I'll be honest with you, I find books extremely boring. I couldn't get bored enough by books. I don't read books at all. I stopped reading books. Well, let's do a bit of a history lesson before we get into it. I think my first book ever was Cat in the Hat. That's a very old book. I don't know if anybody knows it, but that was the first book I read when I learned how to read. And the first book I read was A Cat in the Hat. Then I read Clifford, or we read Clifford as a class, Clifford the Big Red Dog. I think at one point we had Clifford the Big Red Dog as a mascot come and talk about fire safety for us so that we know what to do, stop, drop, and roll, and all that stuff. Okay, so I think it wasn't third. I was reading. I was a little bit interested in reading in third grade, but I believe it was fourth and fifth grade where I read. I read for 2 years. And you know what? Not even so much in fourth grade. It was really fifth grade that I started reading. What happened was that we were told that there was some kind of system where we get points on the board. Our names were on the board. We get points. And the more points you got, the more prizes you could get. Now, I only had that ever done in fifth grade. In fifth grade, I had a teacher. Now, I don't know personally who he was or what he did, but he had no issue with me. And I'll be very honest. He did have issues with some other kids. He never had any issues with me. Okay, he might have yelled at me once or twice when he was very upset, but for the most part and for the whole year, I had really had no issues with him. But he was an old man, and he loved playing accordion. Um, yeah. Anyway, so he put our names up, and then we would get points. Now, when you have a lot of points, you could get prizes. They had like you get a pencil with one of those, and I love these things. They had the attachable eraser, where you attach an eraser to the back of the pencil. Things like that, right? Things like that were child savvy or school savvy, I should say. So we had an incentive to read books. So what I did was I read a book every day. I would get a novel, right? I would take it home and I would read the entire time. I'd only take a break to use the washroom or to eat something. And then I nonstop would just read. So I did read a book every day. If the book was too big, I would read it in 2 days. If it was really big, I'd read it in 3 days. And I think at the end we did like a kind of a presentation on our favorite book. I still remember there was a girl. Oh, that was fourth grade. Yeah, there was this girl. Really, I'm not gonna get into the details. I remember there was a book that she read that I just couldn't read. I found it so boring and stupid. She did a presentation on it. She was trying to impress the whole class. All right. It was called To Kill a Mockingbird. All right. She was doing a presentation on that. I tried reading it as well. I got into like the 12th page and I said, this book is so stupid. And I told her that. I don't think she liked it at all. But anyway, she did a presentation on that. And that book was supposed to be at an adult level or something. So she was really showing off. Which I really didn't give a shit if she showed up. I knew how smart I was, and I didn't really need to do 20 assignments or read stupid books to get whatever you call it. So, anyways, I'm really wasted. I wanted to get into the book, so I read a book like every day. Okay, fifth grade summer comes, and the only book that I liked reading at the time was Harry Potter. Okay, I didn't read any books anymore. I stopped reading books. I'll tell you. Okay, so my favorite books, I like Captain Underpants. I read the whole series of Captain. There was this funny little kid who liked reading Captain Underpants, and he actually bought the books. His mom bought them for him, and he said after he'd finished reading, he said, "If you want, you can read it." So I would read Captain Underpants. Was very entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot. Roald Dahl had a bunch of books. He had the witches books. He had a lot of books. Roald Dahl was a nutcase though. I mean, now that back then I didn't notice, but now I think back to it, and by the way, they made movies on Roald Dahl's books. They made children's movies. He was a total nutcase. I don't know what he was into, but he was definitely a creep, and he was definitely a total nutcase. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so I remember Roald Dahl. I read a bunch. I read there was a what was it? Animorphs, the guy, the people who morph into animals. There were all these books that I read. Some of them were really cool, by the way. But I read a bunch of books, and then I stopped. That end of the fifth year, end of the year. By the time summer came along, there was no point. I completely stopped reading books at that point. Now I read a book like every day, so I had read hundreds of books already. Okay, I had read, and I'm talking about novels. I had read, not really. I don't think I really read any science. What do you call them? Non-fiction books. So I read all fictional novels. I probably had read hundreds and maybe 300 or 400 novels by that time, right? Summer comes along. I got nothing to do, just like every single summer, and nobody's gonna take me with them, and I'm not allowed to go too far. They're afraid that I'm gonna get kidnapped. They were always afraid I'd get kidnapped, thinking that if somebody saw a kid that cute by himself, especially knowing that if they found out that he was living with a family that clearly wasn't his family, that my chances of getting kidnapped were quite high. Okay, so they were really worried that I was gonna get kidnapped. And they didn't want to lose me because they had a showpiece. They could go to people's houses and show me off. Not like I remember. So we used to take first class, by the way, when I was a kid. We used to take first class because the father had landed this incredible job when he was younger, and he didn't leave the company for like 25 years. So he managed to get some connections within the company. 25 years of working in the same company, and it was a nice company, by the way. So we get first class, and I still remember the air hostesses, the air stewardesses came up to me, and they were talking about, they're like, "Is this really your son?" Yeah. So they kind of wink at her like, "Yeah, that's your son." And then they go, "Hey, can we take him to the back with us?" And she goes, "Sure, take him," right? So they take me to the back, and then they start asking me math questions. Do you know? And I was only, I think, 4 years old. I was about 4 years old. They started asking me math questions, and I'm answering all their questions. The funny thing was, I think one or two of them spoke fluent Arabic, but they didn't ask me anything to do with anything with Arabic. They didn't ask any questions that had anything to do with Arabic. So they were asking me math questions to see how smart I was, and I would answer the question, and they would get clap, and they would get impressed. But really, they brought me over there because of how cute I was. But on top of being cute, I had another kind of presentable ability, and that was mathematics, because I started learning mental math right away, to be honest. I remember being a little kid, and I would sit on the toilet, and I started off with, what's 1 plus 1? And it was 2. What's 2 plus 2? 4. 4 plus 4, 8. And I think I got as high as, like, I remember 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048. And is it 4096 maybe? I think and then I got, I don't know what it is after 4096, but I got till after 4096. Anyways, that was all they wanted to do. Then they brought me back. They were very impressed. They were happy to see me, but they were worried that they were always on the back of their heads. They were thinking that somebody might kidnap him and take him away. And they thought, and they knew how I was. They knew me from the beginning. Okay, I reflect on this day, and I think about the mother, and she had some kind of good relationship with me. But I'll tell you one thing about her. If I ever told her, for example, if I said, I found out the truth, I know that I have a different mother and father, I know exactly what she'd say. She would smile, and she would say, "Well, we didn't want to tell you, and we never wanted to tell you, but I mean," another thing she would say is, I'm surprised it took you this long to figure out." I know definitely she would say that. She was, "I'm surprised that it took you this long to figure out that you weren't our family member." But, and I know she would always say, if you want to go with your family, do whatever you want. That's the truth, that's your family. And she would smile and say, that's who's closer to you. They're closer to you than us. You know what I mean? But like I told you, I shouldn't use the F word. I was already, kind of with a family who wasn't my family, or I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I was already with the family before I was with the family. I was with the church before I was with the church. You know what I mean? That kind of situation. Anyways, going on. We were talking about books. So yeah. So what happened was, again, fifth grade, I had nothing to do. And I wasn't allowed to go too far. So when I did make friends, I wasn't allowed to go see them because they were too far away, right? Or they'd call me for some kind of party, and I could never go. Also, I had no money to spend, so I couldn't go with kids to. I would get invitations. I would turn them down because I didn't have money to go with them to places and spend it. And they would always say, so I remember a specific, I'm not gonna get into specifics, but I get invited. I had no money to spend. You know what I mean? So I wasn't spending any money. So I had nothing to do. That's why, honestly, any form of incarceration. I mean, I don't like incarceration, but I kind of grew up with like a sort of incarceration. So it doesn't faze me as bad as it phases other people. But anyways, I had nothing to do, and I got into Harry Potter. I got into the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone, which was the first book, and I became obsessed with. I mean, reading Harry Potter to me was like watching a movie. Until this day, I've never watched a Harry Potter movie. To me, Harry Potter was so entertaining that there was no book as a child that I had read that was anywhere close to entertaining as Harry Potter. And I love the story how he lived with a family that wasn't his. And he had these older siblings that he didn't like, and these, you know what I mean? And he used to live in the attic or whatever. They gave him a little attic room or something like that. And then he'd go off in the summer and he'd be learning magic and all that stuff, which I thought was really cool. And the funny thing is, it wasn't the magic that brought me in, that really attracted me to Harry Potter, gave me appeal. It was Harry Potter that made me want to read Harry Potter. I mean, it was cool, those stories and everything, but it was Harry Potter, and the fact that rather than the world attract him, the magic world attract him, it was more like he attracted the magic world. You know what I mean? Brilliantly, I don't know, J.K. Rowling, if that was your material, incredible book. Right, I got to the point where new Harry Potter books you couldn't get them from the library, so I was begging these guys to buy me the book, and they wouldn't buy me the book. You know what I mean? I was begging them, buy me this book. They never bought me the book, so I had to wait till like school started and somebody gave me a secondhand book. Now you understand why I like Harry Potter. I had a lot of secondhand stuff. Okay, he had secondhand stuff. I had secondhand stuff. Even those. Supposedly he was rich or he had like and I think that's the third book where he finds out that he has money. They show him his bank and he's got gold and all that stuff, and he realizes he has money, but the money doesn't mean anything to him. He just spends it for food and stuff. He's not like, oh, I got money, I'm flying. And he was never that type. You'll remember, he was never that type of character. You know what I mean? He wasn't the type of character, I'm gonna flaunt all that. Like, he finds out he's got a shitload of money, and what does he do? Well, I gotta get my school supplies. So let's go get school supplies. And before he bought secondhand school supplies, now he could buy new school supplies. He was able to buy new school supplies versus getting secondhand stuff. And he could eat food and candy and things, all the things that children like. So that was definitely, I mean, that was the last book that I enjoyed reading. And I read it every year, and I had completely stopped reading any book. I only read books that, like, they gave us one book to read in English class in a year, and I would read that stupid book. I was done with reading. When I got into high school early, I read the Da Vinci Code. I found it very interesting. I just never read books. All right, I'm gonna get to the second part of this.